Okay, so
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Can you
yes, we can, Cooper.
can you can you mute your room
Let me.
because Brian's phone call will be going live streaming here in 5 seconds. Okay, let me edit the video.
Hey, good morning. Can everybody hear me?
I can hear you, Cooper. Good morning.
Okay. Good morning, Jen. Good morning, Jennifer.
Let's go here. So we are recording right now and we are live streaming, just so you know. Okay. Looks like we have Pat. So Cooper, when I set the meeting up in my background settings, chat is disabled. So we don't have chat. We're going to have to request that people raise their hand and then
Okay.
we'll individually hover over them and say, request that they unmute themselves.
Okay.
And I think that that will work.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
looks like Jen Jahajian.
Goodbye, John.
Good morning, Cooper. I'll be presenting for IDWR today.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. It is 10 a.m. on March 13th, and this is Upper Snake River Advisory Committee number 325. We're recording the meeting, and we're streaming live on YouTube, I think also. And we're just going to go through the agenda. The first item is introduction and attendance. And I think we'll start with the Boise office.
Cool. Good morning here in the Boise office. There's Brian Patton, myself, Wesley Hipke, and Neil Farmer. And, you know, I think, well, people are still going in. I think at this point in time, since we're seeing a lot of new people here, that actually, let's go ahead and finish up this part of it, and then we'll turn it over to Brian Patton.
Well, sure. So, you know, if we want to wait another 2 minutes for people to come in, we'll start at 10:03.
I think we can go ahead and get started, Cooper.
Okay. Well, does anybody, I mean, so we have a regular group of people, most of them are here. And I guess, you know, we have some new people here. This is an operations forum, so we're not talking budget or policy or anything today. We're talking about, you know, it's in the water management community, a little bit of an exciting meeting because Milner is zero flow right now, and there may be some releases over it. I don't know. We'll find out today, maybe. So with that, does anyone want to introduce
So at this
themselves
point,
specifically?
Dan Todd Cooper, I think we'll turn it over to Brian Patton. And he can kind of give a little more background of what this meeting is and kind of what the intent is, given we do have a lot of new people today.
Excellent.
Yeah, thanks, Wes. Thanks, Cooper. Since we do see several new people on today's Zoom call, just want to remind everybody this is an official advisory committee to the State of Idaho Water Resource Board for the purpose of providing information to relevant parties regarding water management operations in the Upper Snake River Basin. This advisory committee has a lot of information to cover today regarding those water management operations, and we do expect to see some rapid changes in those water management operations in the coming weeks. So we do anticipate limited time for questions and answers following each agenda item. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Cooper.
Good. Well, thank you, Brian. And let's go ahead on in the next agenda item to a weather forecast with NOAA.
And do you know, Cooper, who's giving that today?
Hey, give me they've been kind of changing it, so give me just a minute.
I assume it's Mark.
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me?
Hey, Mark.
Yes, we can, Mark.
Yes.
Yeah, I could not unmute myself, so the settings were. And will you let me share the screen, Cooper? Can you allow that? It doesn't look like I can enable that myself.
Good. Give me just a minute.
And as
I got
they're
it,
doing
Cooper.
that,
Okay, thanks.
I'll explain a little bit, because we were told that potentially we could have like 1,000 people on this call, which our Zoom account does not handle that. So we had to switch to a different account, one that allowed us to live stream. So I apologize to the presenters and whatnot. There'll be a little more technical difficulty here. As we move forward, if you have comments or something, use the little raise hand signal and we will get to you. So thanks for all your patience today. I will turn it back over.
Great. So this is Mark. Can you guys see that image?
Yes,
That
we
looks
can.
great.
Okay, great. Yeah, my name is Mark Dallin. I'm the service hydrologist with the weather service in the Pocatello office. So good morning, everyone. I'll just give a little bit of information on what we've seen the last month, and then kind of an update on what we're seeing coming up in the near future. So for February, as you're well aware, it was pretty wet. First graphic will just show that observed precipitation on the left, percent of normal on the right. So we were well above normal in the Upper Snake drainage, including in Wyoming. Upwards of 150 to 200% in some locations, and good volumes as well. This is the same image on the left, just with another by basin on the right. So most of the Upper Snake was above average for the month. For the water year, then, is what these are. Around average for most basins. As we get north to the Henry's Fork Centennial Range, a little bit below that for total precip, and I'm sure we'll see more as we get into the snow water equivalent that NRCS will probably review. Temperatures for February, right around average, and for the water year, it's been average to just slightly above average. Snow currently, this is a satellite model of the snow coverage. Most low elevation snow is now gone. We're still seeing some low elevation sheet flooding around Rexburg, but that's about the lowest it is. The next image is from a month ago, so it's a really interesting image. I'll toggle back and forth a little bit. You can see the extent of the low elevation snow that's now gone, but you can also see the accumulation of mid and high elevation snow was pretty stark over this month, especially the eastern highlands around Blackfoot Reservoir, Soda Springs. So interesting accumulation. With that low elevation precipitation and snow melt, we did see some runoff events. Those were valley bottom, low elevation rain on snow events. This one was in Cassia County, did a little bit of damage to some homes. And then there's some ongoing stuff in Madison County right now. Not anything serious, but a little bit of subdivision effects and impacts. Drought status from a month ago, we've seen kind of a decrease in drought categories by about one category. Still not gone, but some of that stuff in Custer County that was D2 has decreased to D1, and a little bit also in southern Cassia County and southeast Idaho. I put this graphic in just to show kind of the western extent. Its drought is persisting and increasing in some locations. The Yellowstone Plateau, it's decreased just a bit over the last month. So obviously the Upper Snake, that's very relevant, and we'll see how that progresses. It's been very wet this month, so that could decrease again. And then short and long-term weather forecasts. Obviously, today is very stormy where we are. Most of Idaho, southern Idaho, and eastern Idaho is seeing a pretty wet event today. That will be through today, kind of clear off, but then another event coming on Saturday and Sunday. So these charts kind of show that development. Mixed precipitation, rain, snow low, snow high, but very active. These forecasts are for two just kind of spot forecasts for Teton Pass and Pocatello. Obviously unsettled for the entire through Monday. So snow and wind and rain, a chance most days. Over the next 7 days, the estimate for precipitation, the national maps on the left and zoom in on Idaho on the right. Most valley locations in eastern Idaho from 1/4 to 1/2 inch over the next 7 days. Mid elevations up 3/4 to 1 1/4 inches, and then mountains 1 1/4 inches plus. So pretty wet system, pretty wet pattern for the next week. 6 to 10 day outlook again is also above average for precipitation and below average for temperature. 1 to 2 week outlook still above average for precipitation and below average for temperature. For spring break enthusiasts, that seems cold, so we'll see how that goes. The 1 month outlook then is still above for precipitation, temperature outlook, kind of equal chance. And then seasonal for several months out, kind of equal chances for precip and temperature, not anything clearly indicating one way or the other. So what does that mean for river peak flows? We're starting to check our River Forecast Center information as snow accumulation is peaking and as we're starting to melt things off. Our River Forecast Center has about 15 to 16 forecast points in eastern Idaho, and those are shown on these dots here. The dots on the left, the color scheme is a little bit backwards in my head. The orange and reds and yellows indicate high chance or high probability of reaching flood stage in the next few months. They don't indicate dry, they indicate what could be high. So in our area, the Snake at high C shows at about 50% chance of hitting flood stage, and the Portneuf and Blackfoot. Blackfoot doesn't have a forecast point, but snow looks pretty similar there and similar topography. So the Blackfoot and Portneuf show about 70% chance of those peak flows at flood stage. So we'll be following that and have more information next month. So this is just a map of where we picture those river flood levels. The Big Lost is showing a slight chance. And then the Upper Snake at high seas showing that middle of the road, and Blackfoot, Portneuf, the highest chances of those flood levels. So that's what I have. Any questions? I'm happy to answer. Unless we don't have time, I'll leave that up to you, Cooper, but that's all I've got.
Yeah, are there any questions for Mark? I see Sergi Brown has raised his hand.
Hi, yeah, Sergey Brown.
Sergey, good morning.
That's right. I have to correct everybody. It just is spelled Serge. I'm just curious, is the flooding part of the cloud seeding or the weather management process?
Mark, do you wanna...
I don't know that I can answer that. We're going off of what our forecast information is, off what's on the ground for snow-tell sites, and then based on soil moisture gauge information and weather forecasts, so precipitation and temperature upcoming. So whether that precipitation came from cloud seeding, the snow that's on the ground, I don't have any way to tell that.
Are there... Go ahead, Sergey.
Just a quick follow-up question. Is there a metric? Is there a way that we can figure out if that's the situation? And as well as the drought, are we also creating drought in other areas? If we don't know that information, should we be doing the cloud seeding? Would we be messing with Mother Nature at this point?
Sergey, I think I can help a little bit here. So far as the flooding that was reported, it's pretty much a guarantee that was not caused by cloud seeding, because the flooding we're seeing is the low elevation, that the melting of the snow on the plains, basically. So that's not really due from that. As far as the other question, I do not have an answer for that. And that is something that would be handled, at a different meeting, not really the intent of this one. And so, Dan, did you have something to say?
Well, so I just wanted one quick.
I think he's asking me if I want to respond.
Oh, good, Dan. Thank you.
I would just like to remind folks on this call that this is for planning purposes. There's a bunch of people who rely on these forecasts to figure out what we're going to do and when we're going to do it. The politics of whether or not to do cloud seeding are not for this call. Please, let's just move on.
This is primarily a water user meeting. And so with that, I think we will move on in the agenda to a snowpack and stream flow forecasts with NRCS. And that's with Aaron Wharton. Yeah. Let's see.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me now?
Hey, Aaron. Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Can you allow sharing again, please?
Aaron, try again. You should be able to.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Jennifer. How's that look on your side?
It looks great. We can see it. We
Okay.
can hear you.
Perfect. Hi, everybody. I'm Erin Wharton with the Natural Resources Conservation Service and the Idaho Snow Survey, and I'm here to give a snowpack update and with streamflow forecast as well. So looking at total water year precipitation, we've got our 3 basins in the Upper Snake on the right. Henry's Fork, Teton, didn't see much change over the last month. That went from 91 to 92%, so pretty much the same. Most of the wet area just kept it about the same with climatology. We did see some improvements in the Snake River above Heisey, went from 96 to 100% of normal. And then we saw some improvement in the Willow, Blackfoot, Portneuf over the last month in terms of total water precipitation, 95 to 106%. And that's due to that like above normal precipitation that Mark was telling us about. The rest of the state fared about the same. We do have a new product where you can look at the snake above Milner now. And so you can look at all 3 basins all together. You get to that by going to the basin plot drop down. And then if you scroll down, you'll see under miscellaneous basins at the very bottom that you can see snake above Milner as an option. So looking at the snake above Milner, the black, we've got time on the x-axis and then total precipitation accumulation in inches on the y-axis. The black is this year and the orange is last year. And then the 30-year median 1991 to 2020 is in the green line. So the black line, we are sitting at 98% of normal in the basins above Milner. And we're a little bit below where we were last year. Last year, we had that really wet March that boosted us up. And we're about halfway in terms of our total precipitation that we see in these 3 basins over the year. Looking at the basins in terms of snowpack, again, time on the x-axis and snow water equivalent, which is the amount of water that is contained in the snowpack on the y-axis, and that's measured in inches. Black line is showing us at 103% of normal in the Snake River above Milner, and we're about 86% towards our peak snowpack. We are sitting a little bit below where we were last year due to the little bit drier conditions we had at the first part of March compared to last year. But we're sitting in the 57th percentile, so pretty much median type of snowpack right now. Looking at the subbasins or the major basins, the Henry's Fork Teton is the driest portion of the basin. That's sitting at 93% normal for the snowpack there. The Snake River above Heisey is at 105% of normal, and the Willow, Blackfoot, Portneuf is the wettest at 117% of normal. And we can look a little bit further into the subbasins and see that in the Henry's Fork, it's the Henry's Fork Falls River Basin that's sitting 88% normal, but the Teton Basin is at 102% of normal. We do see a little bit of drier conditions above Jackson Lake, or right below it, and that's with the Buffalo Fork at 93% of normal and Snake River above Heisey at 98% normal. And then you can just see conditions start getting wetter the farther you move south, even in the Heisey Basin. Hoback sitting at 107% of normal. Salton Grays are more like what's happening in the Willow, Blackfoot, Portneuf Basin, which all range from 110 to 120% of normal. On the left, we've got snow courses, which represent our more mid-elevation sites. And then the right, these are snow-tail courses, which represent more of our mid to high elevation sites. We saw a really big improvement in the snow courses from February 1 to March 1. Those are all sitting around normal. So as Mark was saying, we lost a lot of that low elevation snow at the warm spell at the end of February, beginning of March. But the mid-elevation snow has really remained robust. And same with the high elevation snowpack is sitting around 100% of normal, except up in the Henry's Fork Teton area, which is sitting closer to 70 to 85% of normal. So we are looking at pretty robust snowpack right now. Again, we are seeing this shift into wetter patterns. So we're going to get, anywhere from 120 to 175% of normal precipitation. It looks like, from this forecast from yesterday that the Henry's Fork Teton looks like one of the wetter portions of the basin. So we'll hope that we get some moisture delivered to that area as well. So looking ahead at projection graphs, this is at the Snake River above Heisey. We're sitting probably around that cyan blue line. That's the 70th percentile for precipitation. So if we maintain that for the rest of the month, we will be reaching above median peak, which is that little X on the graphs there. If we're sitting, if we get a little bit drier towards the end of the month, 50% median projection of precipitation will be a little bit below the median peak snowpack. In the Henry's Fork Teton, we really need that 70th or greater percentile precipitation in order to reach the median snowpack. If we sit at climatology, we will end up with a below normal snowpack and pretty much same situation as we are in now. Different situation in the Willow Black Fork Port Neuf. That basin has already reached its median peak snowpack level about a month earlier, well, 3 weeks earlier than usual. So if we sit with climatology at 50%, 50th percentile, we'll still hit that peak snowpack. But if we are continuing this wet pattern, we'll be more in the 70th and 90th percentile in terms of our snowpack, or 50th to 70th percentile, excuse me. Moving forward to streamflow forecast volumes, Snake River at Heisey has improved quite a bit. We're sitting at 103% of normal at the 50% exceedance forecast. In the Willow Creek to Port Neuf, we're sitting at 110 to 114% of normal. So those flooding concerns are very much apt for that area. In the Snake River above Heisey, we see the streamflow forecast, the highest where the snowpack is the biggest down in the southern portion of the basin. Those are ranging from 93% to 114% of the Grays River. Moving a little bit farther north in that basin where it's a little bit drier, forecasts are sitting at 90%, the Snake River at Flag Ranch up to 96% at the Buffalo Fork tributary. We do see drier forecasts in the Henry's Fork Ashton area. That's sitting at 83%. Teton River near St. Anthony at 87%. So lower streamflow forecast for that area. At Heisey, we are sitting at 103% or 99% for the April through September period. That's 3,630 calf, 1,000 acre feet volume coming over that area. We saw a big increase from February 1 just due to that wet conditions in February. We saw 820 calf increase from February 1. The one thing that we're a little bit concerned about is that we are seeing dry soils in the upper Snake. All three soil moisture products, the NASA Sport Lease, the Crop Chasma, and the NASA Grace are all showing dry conditions indicated by those orange and red colors or brown colors in the Crop Chasma. This could affect our runoff efficiency spring. This is looking at soil moisture in the upper Snake, on the black line being this year, the orange line being last year. You can see that our soil moisture in the area is quite a bit below normal compared to last year. We're sitting in the probably 25th percentile right now. And so when we look at the streamflow forecast, we might urge folks to look towards those drier end of the forecast. Those are the ones on the left in the orange and red colors, where like we could see as low as 81% of normal for the April through September period, up to 92% of normal if those drier forecasts come to fruition. Last year, the observed runoff was in the 30 to 50% exceedance category, so those blue-green side of the forecast charts, and runoff was 98% of normal. So those wet soils really did help us last year, and we might see a little bit of decrease this year. And at this point, I can take any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Erin. And are there any questions for Erin? Okay, hearing none, I want to say thank you so much to Erin, and we'll move on to a water supply and operations update with the USBR. And that should be Brian Stevens.
Okay. Hey, Cooper.
Brian, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Let me go ahead and share my screen here.
Yeah, we're seeing it.
Coming through. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll be walking through a update on operations in the Upper Snake. So first off, wanted to go over the basin, given there's lots of folks on here today that may not have been on the calls before. Just wanted to give an overview of the basin. So this is the Snake River here in blue. Headwaters are up in Yellowstone area, and they flow through Jackson Lake, come down through Palisades, and then comes down through Idaho Falls, down through Blackfoot, down through Burley and Rupert. And then down here at the end of the delivery system is Milner Dam. And that's a critical spot where water is diverted out of the Snake River. And most often, the flow in the Snake River just downstream of Milner Dam is zero because water is diverted out of the Snake for irrigation. And you can see these lands down here downstream of Milner Dam. These lands are watered with Snake River water, but are diverted out of the Snake River at Milner Dam because the river drops down through a canyon here. And so all these lands through here are diverted with water from the Snake River. So you can see water up here in the Henry's Fork area. This is the Rexburg area, Idaho Falls, Blackfoot, Rupert and Burley, Twin Falls, Jerome. All these lands receive water from the Snake River. And they either divert natural flow and or a storage flow. So it depends on their portfolio of water rights that they've got. And to go over water rights in the basin, this picture shows where the different irrigation districts are. There's many, many, many irrigation districts throughout the Upper Snake. You can see in the Upper Valley, there's a lot of generally smaller districts than in the Lower Valley. Districts in the Upper Valley typically have more senior natural flow rights and generally more junior storage rights. And then in the Lower Valley, the irrigation districts down here generally have more junior natural flow rights and generally more senior storage rights. And those two differences in how the basin receives water is largely it's factored by when these areas were settled. And so when the irrigation districts started diverting water, they received natural flow. And then over time, reclamation was petitioned to build storage reservoirs in the basin. And so all the reservoirs were built at different times, and those rights were contracted out for the storage space. So altogether in the Upper Snake, there's about 2.5 million acres that are irrigated. There's less than 1.1 million acres of irrigated lands through the basin that receive water from reclamation storage. There's about 60 storage contracts with reclamation, and there's about 4.2 million acre feet of storage capacity with all the reservoirs in the basin. So to go over current conditions, this shows our teacup diagram. On the left, you can see that currently there's just over 3 million acre feet stored in the reservoir system. Overall, the system is 79% full. We're currently sitting at 114% of average and 113% of median, just to give you an idea of where we're sitting compared to normal. We are sitting about 323,000 acre feet less than last year at this time, but we're also sitting about 359,000 acre feet more than median at current time. So we have good storage in the system. You can see up at Jackson Lake sitting at 76% full. That is relatively flat during the wintertime, passing inflow currently. Palisades sitting at 68%, discharging its winter flow of 900. Down in American Falls, currently sitting at 87%, discharging about 300 CFS. And then down at Lake Walcott, this is Reclamation's last dam on the river in the Upper Snake system. It's an 84% full and discharging about 432 CFS. Our winter target kind of fluctuates there. Or the flow fluctuates a little bit around our target of 425 down there. And then the water being released from Minidoka Dam flows down the Snake River. You can see flow below Milner showing 0 CFS, all the water being released from Minidoka. plus any gains are being diverted down at Milner for recharge. You can see throughout the other parts of the basin, Ryrie is sitting at 67% full, Island Park 86%, Henry's Lake 93%, and Grassy is 77%. The storage in the Henry's Fork and Willow Creek are all looking good. So I'll show generally through the rest of the presentation how projections look for Jackson, Palisades, and American Falls, particularly over the next month or two as potentially some spill. Looking at total storage in the system, this thicker blue line here is 2025. This green line here is 2024. There's that about 300,000 acre-foot difference between this year and last year. Last year, we were sitting at really high levels, and Palisades was forecast to fill. We ended up doing flood risk management at Palisades last year. It was drafted a little bit. You can see its trend line. Last year in 2024, the reservoir system barely filled. It was really close and was largely driven by warm temperatures in the June timeframe. So accounts all filled last year minus evaporation. There in 2025, you can see we've been above median all water year and projecting to look good. Peak storage typically doesn't happen until April, May, or June timeframe. So there's a lot of factors that have to play out for us to see how that'll turn out. You can see in going back a few years, 2022 or 2021, we were above average or above normal. And then that's when the system went into a drought cycle as far as storage. And we were below normal, well below normal, until water year 2023 when we had a really good snowpack. It bumped us up above and stayed close to normal. We've been there ever since, either at or above normal. So looking good this year on storage. Looking at our monthly forecast, this is for the month of March. So every month, January through June, Reclamation does a forecast at the first of the month. And some of these sites are coordinated with the Corps because those have formal Section 7 flood control requirements. So high C is the main driver for storage in the system. That is currently sitting at 94%. You see Ryrie sitting at 106 and Littlewood's in a side basin sitting at 88. Jackson is sitting at 86. Island Park is 79. So we saw big increases from February to March due to the precip, looking good there. Wanted to compare the forecast from 2025 to 2024. You can see the high C forecast. So on the top side is 2025, on the bottom is 2024. High C forecasts are the same for the month of March. And those are a combination of, these forecasts include snowpack and base flow conditions. So generally similar conditions above high C. But then you can see in the other basins, in Island Park, 79 this year, 88 last year. Teton, 87 this year, 98% last year. And Ryrie, 106% this year and 122% last year. So you can see last year there was the outlook for higher flows or higher inflows into the system than we do have this year. Looking at the basins and where the snowpack is in relative to median or average here. The upper Henry's Fork is sitting at 77%, lower Henry's at 91%, Teton 98, Snake Headwaters 92. You can see that the headwaters are generally lower than the southern basins. So Palisades, Salt, Blackfoot, Portneuf, American Falls are all sitting above average here. Looking good there. And in the basin, there are differences in timing of runoff. So in the lower basins, you could see runoff come a little earlier, and in the headwaters a little bit later. Typically out of the Snake, we see the peak in early June. So there's a lot of factors that drive how the year turns out. To look at base flows, I think generally these follow what Aaron was talking about with the soil conditions being drier than last year. On the top side, this is high CQU. In the the median is the pink dots in here, and then 2025 is light blue, dark blue is last year, 2024. So generally close to normal, if anything, a little bit below normal for this year. Last year was close to normal, if not above normal. So a little bit lower base flows in the High C Basin this year. And then on the bottom side of the slide shows gains into American Falls. And there's different ways of computing this. On the left is with straight IDWR data from Water District 1. And that data hasn't been run since the end of November. And so for 2025, that cuts off here in late November. You can see 2024 generally followed close to, if not a little bit above normal. Last year, cold temperatures really dropped the gains into American Falls in January last year. And then to finish out the winter, close to average or normal, above, or if anything, close to normal, if not above normal. And then on the right shows gains into American Falls, and this is using reclamation data. So American Falls has a computed value of American Falls gains, and taking into account flows from upstream and diversions over the winter, computing this graph. And so you can see currently that base flows into American Falls have been close to normal. It looks like it's a little bit less than last year, so close to normal. When we do get precip come through, there is some increase in the gains into American Falls. So it's good to see that this isn't on the extreme low end, but it's definitely not on the extreme high end. Let me go to the next slide here. This shows Jackson Lake operations. As I mentioned earlier, Jackson Lake levels have been relatively flat all winter. We've been passing inflow all winter. We have a 200,000 acre foot requirement for flood control space over the winter time, and that's this red line in here. So we've been tracking along there all winter. And then once we get into May, the focus turns from the static line into a dynamic runoff curve. And so with the current forecast, 3,300 calf from March through July, that number, 3,300 calf, drives the shape of these flood curves. And there's a solid and a dashed curve, and that we follow one versus the other, depending on what unregulated inflow into Palisades is looking like. And so generally, when we come off of this 200,000 acre foot requirement, there's a time in here between the early May and when we reach the flood curve. We wouldn't be doing any flood risk management out of Jackson until we get closer to those curves. And so potentially some flood risk management in the May or June timeframe. We'll have to see how that plays out. But that's generally what the outlook looks like for Jackson. Looking like Jackson will fill physically this year, but it may not fill physically until after American Falls fills and starts to draft. And then Palisades here, you can see its fill line and its solid and dashed curves. Again, that's based on the forecast, March through July, and we'll update that number here once we get into April. But currently, this is the flood curve that is forecasted for currently for this year. So you can see if this trend continues and we don't make any changes, we're going to approach the solid curve here sometime in the April timeframe. With the snowpack that we have and the relatively good snow in the snowpack accumulation in the forecast here, it's probably going to be similar. It's probably not going to drop much, if any, potentially go up or stay the same as far as percentage. And so these shapes don't anticipate those to largely change once we get into the April timeframe. But that being said, we could see a really dry April and the forecast start to dry up. And so if that were to happen, these curves would get more shallow, meaning we wouldn't be up against this potentially drafting Palisades for FRM. So we're still in a wait and see mode here for Palisades. So potentially in the middle April to late June timeframe, potentially flood risk management operations out of Palisades. And when I mentioned flood risk management, that just means that we would release more than what irrigation is going to take downstream. And so Even if we were to see a dry up in the forecast and we released just irrigation demand, we could follow the flood curve without sending extra down to American Falls. So we'll see how that goes this year. And then looking at American Falls, you can see the trend line here that we're projecting American Falls to fill in that early to mid-April timeframe. And so there's potential that the lower valley storage, American Falls, including Lake Walcott, would fill. That there could be some excess in the system, but we're still in a wait and see mode to see how that plays out. So potentially in the April timeframe, and this is outside of Palisades operations coming through, and runoff is just natural fill of American Falls over the winter, and a lot of factors to play out before we'll know if that happens. Looking at flow log outlook, this shows the Raybould chart that was negotiated through the NESPERS term sheet process. On the left is the carryover at the end of October, and then on the top side here is the April through September forecast. And currently we're looking at or anticipating about 150,000 or the 150,000 acre foot rental from Water District 1 for flow augmentation out of the Upper Snake. And the flow augmentation program is a federal program that sends water down the Snake River for anadromous fish downstream. And this is only one portion of the overall flow aug. There's other portions in other basins that go towards this. So currently with the March forecast, we're in about the 3,800 cap range, taking off the March high CQU estimate. We're looking probably in that 3,600 range. So falls in this category here. So given the snowpack, I think we're looking pretty likely to be in the 150,000 acre foot range once the April forecast gets coordinated. But again, we won't know until we get there, but it is looking like that. So 150,000 acre foot rental from Water District 1 this year from the Raybould chart. And then overall, we're anticipating the 427,000 acre foot level for flow augmentation for projects in the Snake River Basin above Brownlee this year. And then just some overall notes here. It's been talked about throughout the call today that the February snowfall has increased forecasts throughout the basin. At high C, went from 80% in February to 94% in March. And so we'll have to see how that plays out. But the updated forecast is looking like it increases the likelihood of FRM out of Palisades this year. And with that likelihood increasing, that increases the potential for Milner spill this year, potentially in the April, May, June timeframe. But again, there's a lot left to play out here. It is premature to determine if there will be excess or spill in the system. It may not happen because irrigation demand is going to come on over the next month or two, and it can increase steeply and take that water or use that water that may have spilled past if they don't take it. So we'll have to see how the irrigation season starts up to know if there will be spill. It could be very short. Like I said, it may not happen. If it does, it could be short on the order of a couple days or a few days. And if it does, it could be relatively small. So we'll have to see how the next month or two plays out. There's a fair amount of uncertainty still out there in diversions coming up, the flows in the river with runoff starting to come off, and then timing. If conditions turn wet and cold, then that increases the potential for Milner spill. If it turns hot and dry, then that lowers the potential for Milner spill. So we'll just have to see how that all plays out over the next month or two. Coming up, there's a River Op subcommittee meeting on Monday coming up. So we'll talk with the Committee 9 subcommittee there on outlook and plans, get a better handle on what diversions are looking like to start the year. And then we'll be tracking diversions and runoff over the next month or two. And then we'll be coordinated and needed with the groups that are in the basins, primarily with Water District 1 and the irrigation districts, to store as much as we can in the system to deliver later in the year. There's approximately 863,000 acre feet of space left to fill in the system. So there's quite a bit of space left to fill that we aim to store as much as we can this year to meet our storage contracts. And we'll just have to move through the next month or two and see how that works and store as much as we can. And that's it. There's some contact information here. We can go back through anything, fill any questions if there's any.
Thanks, Brian. And are there any questions for Brian? Okay, seeing none, I want to say thanks once again to Brian, and we will move on in the agenda to an Idaho Power Company operations update. Hi, Jen. Yep, so that's Jen.
All right, thanks, Cooper. I'll share my
Hey, Jen.
screen.
Yep. Yep, we can see it, Jen.
Awesome. Okay, I'll start here with the plot we often show at this meeting, the Snake River near Murphy. We have the calendar year 2024 on the left, 2025 on the right. Wanted to point out kind of the two recent runoff events from low elevation snow melting out, but then also that we're on the second consecutive year of improved flows at this location. So getting up above that red line from where we were in the past. Moving down to the canyon, here's the most recent FRM requirements published by the Corps on March 6th. For Brownlee, they're highlighted with that vertical bar. We're showing an April through July forecast of 5,681 calf. It's 111% of normal and down 319 calf from last month. What this means for pool elevations in Brownlee, our next target is March 31st. We'll be aiming to stay below the 2,053.3 feet in Brownlee Reservoir. Here's a look at what that looks like down in the canyon. The top plot is Brownlee pool elevation. The middle one is Hell's Canyon Complex inflows in orange and outflows in blue. And then the bottom plot is our flow coming downstream from Milner. And then also point out to the left, the solid lines represent the observed flows we've seen so far, and then the dash to the right are forecasted. So up near the top, you'll see that we drafted Brownlee to our what would be our annual low this year, end of February. We were able to use that space to capture that peak inflow that came around that time and stay below our end of February target. We are expecting to continue to ramp up outflows from Hell's Canyon as we follow that spring runoff inflow up. We plan to hold right around 30,000 CFS out of Hell's Canyon through the month of April, and then step down as inflows recede. And that's all I had. I'll stop for any questions.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
There you go. Jen, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
There. I'm just curious, do you know how much precipitation is created by the cloud seeding?
I do not have those numbers. I apologize.
No, and I'm just kind of fact finding. My follow-up question then would be, if we don't know the impact, then why are we doing it?
Well, I guess I just want to say that, this is a public meeting to provide information about water supply conditions and forecasting, water management operations, and it's specifically for water managers.
Well, I completely understand that, but I have sent probably 30 emails. I've probably made 50 phone calls, and this is the only, besides Senator Nichols, who I spoke with the other day, This is the only access that I have had. So please accept my apologies. But absolutely, in months, no one has gotten back to me on these issues. So, Cooper, I completely understand what you're saying, and I really hate to be putting my foot in this meeting. But at what point do we get frustrated and say, okay, if nobody will get back to me, if literally it's radio silence, it's like some super secret operation. Where else do I have to go? Who else do I mean, Jen, she's making the presentation on this. Obviously, she knows. Can she give me a quick answer? Can I get an answer today, or am I relegated to, and me and the 1,000 or more people that I have brought to this meeting? And trust me, that's growing by the minute. Is there a way that we can get some answers today, or can you schedule a meeting for all of us to talk about this? Because we would love to, and we would love to support what you're doing, but the secrecy is killing us.
Yeah.
So my name's Wesley Hipke.
Hi, Wesley.
Good morning, sir. So have you contacted our cloud seeding program manager?
I've reached out to just about everybody I can imagine, but can you tell me who that is, and I'll see if I did, and if not, follow up with that.
Have you checked our website as far as cloud seeding goes? Because her contact information is on there.
Okay, what? Just the Idaho Water Resources Board?
Yes, if you search for that and you put cloud seeding on it, if you go to the board's webpage and then under programs, there's the cloud seeding portion, and yeah, feel free to contact the program manager.
Wesley, thank you so much. I'll not bug you anymore. I see Sarah Olmstead has a question, so I won't interrupt this meeting anymore, and I'll just watch.
Okay. Thank you very much for participating.
Yeah. And Sarah, go ahead. So we're having a little bit of technical troubles, I guess, getting Sarah's question.
Are you there?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. Yep.
Hi. I don't know how much of that you caught, but for Sergey, it is Kayla Golden. Okay. At what point does the board or Water Resources choose to review the GAO report, the assessment on cloud seeding that was published in December?
Yeah, this is Brian Patton with the Department of Water Resources. That's a question that is probably not relevant for this committee, which is for the purpose of exchanging water management information. That question can be asked again to the cloud seeding program manager or at a committee meeting of the water board where they discuss cloud seeding. So let's please move on and focus on the task at hand, as there are numerous people on this call that are needing this information.
Right. We don't have time to attend all of your meetings, so we're trying to get the information from you at the time that we're able to.
This meeting has a purpose. We understand your questions, but there are people on this meeting who need the information that is scheduled to be presented.
Okay. Thank you. This non-transparency issue is clearly still an issue.
The public is encouraged and invited to attend a regular meeting of the Water Resource Board where public comment is always an agenda item.
Okay. And
so,
with that,
hang on. So Dan, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Wes. I just really want to hear the water management update. That's the only transparency I want right now is what's going to happen with the water. We can talk cloud seeding politics later.
Thanks, Dan. Good point. Moving on in the agenda, then we do have a cloud seeding operations update with Idaho Power.
Cooper, who
So
will be
Derek,
giving
is
that?
you? Okay.
That's Derek.
Okay, let me just do something real quick. There you are, Derek.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. Just a little update on what's been done with Idaho Collaborative Cloud Seeding Project in the months of February and March. Just a little overview of what has been seeded to date, and this would be this report is mainly for the February and March timeframe. You can see on this slide that we've had several operations beginning in the beginning of February. We're targeting those higher elevation snowpack in both the Central Mountains and the Upper Snake. Overall, the month of February was a decent month. We had near normal operations in both the Central Mountains, maybe a little bit slightly below normal in the Upper Snake. And overall, the water year is below normal. We've had a lot of storms that pass through. A lot of these are the deeper natural cloud seeding storms that have produced natural precipitation. So overall, it's been a good year snowpack wise, especially in the Central Mountains, maybe not quite as much in the Upper Snake, but operations have kind of followed suit with what's operational. As we continue into March, we're still expecting that wetter than normal precipitation trend. So we'll keep watching and keep looking for additional operations. With that, is there any questions?
Yeah, and are there any questions for Derek?
Thanks, Cooper.
And hearing none, and hearing none, I do want to acknowledge that there's some people that are having technical difficulties. They're watching YouTube. They frustrated. They can't answer questions. We understand that. We do want to note that Idaho Water Resource Board meetings do have a public comment agenda item, and there's a cloud seeding committee, and that's probably a more appropriate forum for cloud seeding issues than this water managers meeting. And so with that, we'll move on to a Water District 1 briefing. And that's Water District 1.
Hey Cooper, hey everyone, this is Scott Stosich, Water District 1. How are y'all doing? Can you hear me?
Scott, good, yes.
All right, we've heard a lot of numbers already, so my briefing will be somewhat brief. The water right fill that is happening, American Falls 1921 water right, is still currently accumulating all the inflows except those being delivered still to the Henry's Lake 1917 water right. The 1921 American Falls fill is about, like Brian said, 80% full, with Henry's Lake 1917 coming in at 90% full. American Falls, as Brian stated, we're expecting to fill the water right by early April, at which point the 1939 Palisades fill right and the Island Park 35 right will come into priority. Currently, Palisades water right 1939 is approximately 60% full or 65% full of carryover, though those percentages are going to vary based on individual space holder carryover. With the the slightly above average reservoir contents. We anticipate spill, though we're still kind of projecting it to be a 50-50 chance of that happening, largely depending on kind of our forecast, especially in the lower valley. If we see a dry couple weeks, we are definitely going to see an increased irrigation demand, which is going to have a pretty big impact on whether or not we're going to be spilling or not. With that said, we do want to plan on spill occurring, even though it won't be to the length or degree of last year. So we urge anyone that is eligible or able to take advantage of recharge operations to have their applications filled out and ready to be submitted to us so we can approve those as quickly as possible, considering the possible short length that we may be spilling. Just another Water District 1 update. We have our draft of the 2024 final accounting and storage reports, I believe, available on our website for any water managers to see what their projected carryover may be for the upcoming season. I believe that's all I have.
Thanks, Scott. And are there any questions for Scott regarding Water District 1 operations? And hearing none, I want to say thanks once again to Scott, and we will move on to a Water Resource Board managed recharge operations update.
And that's going to be Neil Farmer.
Howdy, howdy. Just testing the microphone and video.
We hear you.
Okay. Trying to get the video going here. How about that?
Yeah, well, we see you. We see you.
And
all right, now we see your screen.
Okay. Thanks for confirming that, Cooper. I appreciate that every time. Greetings, everyone. The recharge program has continued to have a typical wintertime scenario of recharge occurring in the lower basin. And some of the numbers that have accumulated so far are total recharge since October 22nd is 106,151 acre feet. That's provisional, of course. And our current diversion rate is 574 CFS out of the Milner Reservoir pool. Bigwood Canal Company started recharge on the Littlewood River system on March 6th. They're currently working on some gates at the bifurcation that is located on the Littlewood. And so they're not able to divert water out of that location at this time, but potentially in the near future. Bigwood has achieved 138 acre feet, and these numbers are as of yesterday, March 12th. AFRD2 Milner Gooding Canal is at 85,205 acre feet. They're diverting 505 CFS. Twin Falls Canal Company is at 9,265 acre feet, and they're diverting approximately 19 CFS. Southwest Irrigation District is up to 11,542 after they've restarted from installing some new flow rate meters, and they're currently diverting at 50 CFS range. Also to note, Northside Canal Company plans to start irrigation deliveries on March 26th, which is approximately 2 weeks from now. And they, I just got to text in. They believe they may divert at about 500 CFS when they start up. So there might be a little excess in addition to their diversions for irrigation on March 26th. This is the graph of recharge that's achieved through the season so far. And we're over here on the right, the green bars are the AFRD2 system diversion rates, and the blue is SWID, and Twin Falls Canal Company is red. And you'll notice some little bars above this brown line, and that's the Bigwood Canal Company's diversions that just started on March 6th. Milner Reservoir water budget. The pool level in black is holding fairly steady at 10 foot, and light blue is our recharge diversions at 574 CFS. And the noteworthy is the orange line down at the bottom, and that's the Burley drains that spiked up here a few weeks ago and have continued to drop from that runoff event. And they're running currently at about 48 CFS. And if you'll note the black line from 2 years ago, the Burley drains did not have that runoff event that occurred. And so we've gotten a little additional water from the Burley area this year just coming in. And these are the measured drains in orange. There are some unmeasured contributions to the system as well, and to make up the delta or change between the diversions and total inflow. Southwest Irrigation District has installed 5 new flow rate meters, and the Water Board has helped financially support those. And those are in progress to be operational for telemetry. And I did want to ask BOR and or Southwest Irrigation District if they had any updates on any of the telemetry actions that might be occurring right now to get those connected to Hydromet or whatever is chosen for their method of telemetry. Is there anyone available to chime in on that for an update?
I will need whoever that is to raise their hand, please.
Okay, well, I can move on. And even if they raise their hand later, that's fine at the end or something. So late last week, Idaho State Department of Ag contacted the Idaho Department of Water Resources and asked if we could help out with a dye trace for the quagga mussel treatments that are going on in the Snake River near Twin Falls. And so the Water Board and the department helped out because we had the expertise and the equipment and the supplies for especially a short notice turnaround time to execute in the field. And this is a photo of Pillar Falls, which is just below Shoshone Falls, and where we did some work. Again, Pillar Falls, of course, if you've never been there, some of the viewers may not be. And this is the dye trace injection or release that we did in a closed pool where they treat quagga mussel infestation. Well, there isn't any actual infestation, but they're treating for the pelagers that could possibly be in there. This pool is 60 feet deep. And so what they're really looking for is when they release their disinfection chemical, how is that chemical behaving in a closed pool environment like this? And so the dye trace is giving the information of how that treatment chemical may move through the pool. And we found some very interesting results just within the first day. On the left is Jeremy with ISDA, and he's deploying a fluorimeter in the center of the pool there. And total, we had 4 fluorimeters deployed. On the right, you can see a telemetered fluorimeter laying on the rocks. And this is the next day where the dye had homogenized through the closed pond. What we found with the rover unit is that dye had only migrated 8 feet down from the water surface. And so from 8 feet down to 60 feet, there was no dye. And so that's telling about their methods and information that they can gain to help improve their treatment delivery of the quagga mussel. And on the right, what they're doing is pumping dye from up high down into the bottom of the basin just to see how that would work if they were actually doing a treatment of their quagga mussel. On the left is Jeremy Barley, and on the right is Nick Zerfleur with ISDA, and they're holding some fluorescein dye is what we used as the safest dye. It's EPA approved to be used in public drinking water supply systems and is commonly used in public drinking water supply systems, and it's been used for over 100 years in tracing around the globe. This is at Shoshone Falls, where we also treated a number of ponds, and we're deploying instruments to track that dye and understand how their treatment chemical would migrate through these ponds that they're treating. With that, I'll leave it for questions.
Thank you, Neil. And are there any questions for Neil? Hearing none, I do want to note that I've been getting some emails, and they ask, does IDWR take any water samples directly from rainwater to test the quality of water coming down? And the answer is we just don't have, I'm not aware of it, and I don't know that anyone on this forum is aware of that. Again, I'm not sure this is the right forum for that. It's not the right forum for that. This is a water manager's operation forum. They're more appropriate. I guess there are different forums for cloud seeding. I did just want to note that question, and then that will move on to the new business item of the agenda. Does anyone have new business? Okay, and hearing none, I hope we're a little behind schedule. Our next meeting of this Water Managers Operations Forum will be on April 10th at 10 a.m. So thank you, everyone, and have a good day.
Thanks, Cooper.
Thanks, Cooper.
Thank you all.